I'm Agent Ghost and welcome to the Archives, and I'm excited to bring you one of my favorite builds ever. Oh, you're already back? I thought I had more time to just keep jamming and listen to music. Well, before we move on to the build breakdown, I just want to give a shout out to the absolute legend that helped inspire this build, and I will leave a link down to the original video that I saw when I first started out on this game that really inspired this build and just amazing. So please check that out down in the description below if you want to. Now let's move on to the build breakdown. Enjoy! Starting things off with the specialization, I'm currently using the gunner specialization for the 10% armor on kill it provides, as well as access to the Banshee Pulse skill, which is one of my favorite skills in general in the entire game, as well as my favorite crowd control skill in the entire game. We'll go into more detail over the Banshee Pulse skill later on in the video. Moving on to the weapons, I'm using the AC-12 named Rock and Roll Shotgun. It is my favorite out of the AC-12 variant shotguns. If you don't have it, I'd recommend using the regular AC-12 shotgun you can farm on Countdown, or the Sledgehammer. That is the other named variant of the shotgun. In the core attributes, if you want to pause and take a look at them, and in the regular attribute, I have plus 10% damage targets out of cover for the highest multiplicative damage in the game. Now, I'm using the Rock and Roll variant of the AC-12 shotgun for the talent Perfectly Extra, which gives us plus 50% magazine capacity. Now, you can look up in the core stats there. Under mag, it has a 30 mag. If I was using the regular AC-12 or Sledgehammer, it would be a 20 mag. 20 mag is perfectly fine for what we're using it for, and what we're using these are for is generating our stacks for the striker gear set. We'll go into more detail on the striker gear set once we get to the armor portion of the build breakdown. But I like having the extra 30 or 10 magazine and full 30 mag for just finishing off enemies or more damage output or what have you. I just like having the extra 10 bullets. There are the mods. If you want to pause, copy, and paste, please do so. Now moving on to the second most important part of this entire build, or part of the showcase of this build, the Eagle Bearer. Now, unfortunately, you can only get the Eagle Bearer from the Dark Hours raid or in the Dark Zone, south, east, west. Real quick, I'll show what that might look like if you go to what's showing targeted loot. If this was the Dark Zone west, south, or east, it would have the assault rifle as the targeted loot, and you have the chance to get the assault rifle from there as well, but that just happens randomly in every couple of months, so the only consistent way is to farm the raid. Now, if you don't have the Eagle Bearer assault rifle, I'd highly recommend the St. Elmo's engine you can get from targeted loot on Countdown. It is a amazing alternative and another one of the best assault rifles in the entire game, arguably the best. So if you don't have the Eagle Bearer, please just use the St. Elmo's engine or whatever else you want to use. Now, for my Eagle Bearer, I've re-rolled in the regular attribute damage targets out of cover, again for the highest multiplicative damage, and I'm using the Eagle Bearer for the talent Eagle Strike, which accuracy increases as you continuously fire up to 30%. So the longer we are firing our weapon, the more accurate you get, which is just insane. Headshot kills grant tenacity buff for 15 seconds. The strength of tenacity is increased by 1% for body shots and 5% for headshots. So you want to try and land and hit your headshots for the tenacity buff. And what tenacity buff does is 40 to 80% of the damage is taken is delayed until the buff expires. All of the total delayed damage is reduced for each enemy killed while the buff is active up to 100% with 3 kills. So once you get 3 kills, 100% of the damage that's been delayed up to 80% is just nullified. So you can just be that much more survivable and tanky. It gets really insane. Now, moving on to the pistol, I'm using the Orbit pistol, which is my placeholder sidearm for all my builds. It's one of my favorite sidearms, or still my favorite in the entire game. There's the core attribute and regular attributes if you want to pause and take a look, as well as the talent I'm using it for is Perfect Finisher and the mods. You can copy and paste if you want to pause and take a look at that. But use whatever pistol you want. It really doesn't matter. Again, I'm just using this as a placeholder, but use whatever you want, which goes into my next segment for all my build videos. I want to disclaim that please use all my build videos as just a starting template, and I want all my viewers, if they want to make any changes, whether it's the specialization, weapons, gear, or skills, please do so. Experiment and have fun, and that's the whole point of this game. So if you see anything that you want to change that better matches your playstyle, I absolutely want to encourage and support that. Now moving on to the gear, let's start off with the Striker's Mask for the Striker gear set and the bonuses that we get. So when you have 2 pieces of the gear, Striker gear bonus, you get plus 15% weapon handling, and you can take a look at any weapon that you want and go down to weapon handling, and that will affect the accuracy, stability, reload time, and weapon swap speed. And I want to give a shout out to the viewer that made this comment in my last video, Brass Bat, about how it does not actually affect damage drop-off, but it does affect, again, accuracy, stability, reload time, and weapon swap speed. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And now let's move on to the next gear piece bonus on the Striker gear set. So for 3 pieces of the Striker gear piece, you get plus 15% fire rate. That just affects our RPM greatly on any of our weapons, so we're producing and shooting more bullets quicker, so just overall more damage. It's insane. And for the most important gear piece bonus on the Striker is the 4-piece, which gives us access to the talent Striker's Gamble. Weapon hits increase total weapon damage by 0.65%, stacking up to 100 times. So plus when we get 100 stacks, that will give us plus 65% weapon damage, which is just insane. 1 stack is lost per second between 0 and 50 stacks, and 2 stacks are lost per second between 50 and 100 stacks. Now in the core attribute, I have plus 15% weapon damage, and the regular attribute, I have plus 6% crit hit chance re-rolled, and plus 12% crit hit damage mod. Moving on to the Striker's Gloves, we've already gone over the gear piece bonuses, so in the core attribute, I have plus 15% weapon damage, and in the regular attribute, I have plus 6% crit hit chance rolled. For the Striker's knee pads, I have plus 170,000 armor in the core attribute, re-rolled, and plus 12% crit hit damage in the regular attribute. In the Striker's holster, I have plus 11% weapon damage. You can get maxed out to 15% weapon damage in the core attribute, and plus 6% crit hit chance re-rolled. Now moving on to the backpack, I'm using the named Bellstone Armory backpack, the Liquid Engineer. This is another Dark Zone exclusive, so you can only get this from Dark Zone, Conflict caches, Name caches, and when it's at the Countdown vendor. So if you do not have that, I'd recommend an alternative at the Memento backpack, exotic backpack, and I'll go over why I'm using the Liquid Engineer over that and just when we get to the talent part of the Liquid Engineer. But to start things off with the brand set, it gives us plus 1% armor regen for the Bellstone Armory brand set, which isn't super significant in the build. It just helps out if we're getting to A to B and we still have some damage in our armor. When we get to A to B, from A to B, then our armor should be back up to max without having to use like a repair kit or anything like that. So it's just a quality of life. In the core attribute, I have 139,000 armor. In the regular attributes, I have plus 6% crit hit chance, 8.4% headshot damage, which is really good synergy where we want to get headshots for tenacity on the Eagle Bearer, and plus 12% crit hit damage. Now again, I'm using this for the talent Perfect Bloodsucker, which killing an enemy adds and refreshes a stack of plus 12% bonus armor for 10 seconds. Max stack is 10 seconds, or is 10. Now, when we get all 10 stacks, it's 120% extra bonus armor. If you were to use regular Bloodsucker, it'd be 100% bonus armor. So we're getting an extra 20% on top of that, and that's why I wanted, again, to use the Liquid Engineer, is to have access for that. Now, again, the great alternative is the Memento backpack, but the reason why I liked Bloodsucker over the Memento backpack is it forces you to always have to be very close quarters to pick up the trophies, and sometimes that would force me into positions I wasn't most happy with, or led to me potentially getting killed or dying outright. And since we're using assault rifles that are great for close quarters and mid-range to semi-long range, I really liked having the access to, if I just get a kill, I achieve my bonus armor, so I can stay back or position myself accordingly. So that's why I'm using Perfect Bloodsucker, but again, use whatever you want. Now, let's move on to the chest piece, and then I'll go over the skills and stats, then final gameplay footage. So I'm using the Fenrir's chest piece for the brand set bonus of plus 10% assault rifle damage. Just helps our Eagle Bearer or whatever assault rifle you decide to use that much more. In the core attribute, I have plus 12.6% weapon damage. In the regular attributes, I have plus 12% crit hit damage, plus 6% crit hit chance re-rolled, and a plus 12% crit hit damage mod. As well as I'm using this chest piece, so I have the access to the talent Obliterate, which critical hits increase total weapon damage by 1% for 10 seconds. Stacks up to 25 times. So we can, after hitting critical hits 25 times, we can get plus 25% extra weapon damage bonus on top of the Striker's 65% from Striker's Gamble. So plus 90% weapon damage bonus. Is just insane, the amount of damage and efficiency that we can kill with this build. It's just love it. All right, moving on to the skills. I'm using the Banshee Pulse skill like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, and what that does is the Banshee launches a forward arc of pulse energy that disorientates enemies caught in the wave and penetrates cover. So there are the stats and mods. If you want to copy and copy and paste, please do so. And I'll show off what that looks like right now. So what that looks like is there's the arc, and we send that out. And then once you see that circle swirling symbol above their head, that means they're disorientated and won't be firing at you. And you're able to shoot and take full advantage of them. So what I like to do is I like to use my Banshee Pulse, which is a backup for another 10 seconds, but I will pulse them, then take out my rock and roll. Oops, fully reload it first. And then I will just gun them down with the rock and roll. And then as to show with the stats, again, here is a better example. Pulse them, take out rock and roll, gun them down, build up my stacks. And how you can tell that right now in real time is under my UI, that Gatling gun that's green, you can see with the bar underneath it. When that's fully maxed out, that means we have our 100 stacks for that, so plus 65% weapon damage. And then the punching fist to the right of it with that bar maxed out, that's the obliterate, which when that's maxed out, we have the plus 25% weapon damage, so 90% total, which is just insane. But yeah, that's what it looks like. Now moving on to my second ability, I'm using the Reviver Hive, which is pretty self-explanatory. There are the mods if you want to copy and paste, and we'll demonstrate an idea on what that looks like right now. So if I were to take damage, for example, like so, and then I keep taking damage and go down, then automatically you wouldn't even have to deploy it yourself, but just to visually show it, your Reviver Hive will go down and then it will pick you up, and you'll basically get an extra life to keep going, which is just so great. But once it's gone, you have to wait 180 seconds before you get your extra life back. Or if you're like playing in a group or something and somebody goes down and they're far away from you and you can't really revive them, you can throw your Reviver Hive towards them and pick them up that way if you're feeling generous. Entirely up to you. But those are the skills I'm using. If you don't want to use the Reviver Hive or anything like that, I'd recommend the Striker Drone or Decoy. Those are great alternatives, but those are the skills I'm using. Now let's move on to the stats and then final gameplay footage. So for the Eagle Bearer under weapon stats, I have 108,000 weapon damage, 50% crit hit chance. Try and aim for as close to 50% crit hit chance as you want, or as you can, not want, but get to 50% as close as you can. And then whatever left over put into crit hit damage, which I have 120% crit hit damage, 83.4% headshot damage, 16% health damage, and damage targets out of cover. Under the offensive, I have 69.6% all weapon damage bonus, 40% assault rifle damage bonus, we're not using LMGs, and plus 15% shotgun damage bonus. We've already gone over the gear talents and brand set bonuses, so that just leaves the defensive. I have 1,066,000 armor. On the bottom left there, you can see 1.1 million. It rounds up, but that's the exact number. 106,000 armor on kill, 10,000 armor regen. Again, this is just like a quality of life thing to where when you're out of combat and you just want your armor to be maxed out for the next engagement, that just is nice. And then 331,000 max health. That's it for the stats. Now we'll move on to the final gameplay footage, but I just want to say, hang on. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.